All right. Hello, hello, hello. 511. Thank you for arriving. So first thing, so I was editing my videos. I mean not editing, but sort of looking at my videos. And I guess there's this notion that like I realize that like I have my mouth open a lot. And I guess so it's interesting because I'm assuming that maybe I don't know. Question of the day: do you guys find yourself with your mouth open or not? And if you're like me, I mean, the answer is you probably aren't aware, right? There's a certain like it's ironic because the fact that you have your mouth open, it's sort of like a lack of awareness, right? That you have your mouth open. And I will say though that like I tend to like if I'm like at a table, right? Like I'll tell you a story what happened to me a couple weeks ago, but if I'm at a table, I tend to put my hand over my mouth, and I'm wondering if it's because my mouth is shaped like it is, or if it's because I just might have it open and I won't be aware of my own body, and it's sort of like I gotta cover it because I'm like I feel people like staring at me or something. I don't know. It's interesting. It's an interesting question, and it's a question that perhaps there's a sort of truth to it. In other words, like the causal reason that like when you think about like law, it's sort of like, oh, like what's the proximate cause of something? Things can have multiple causes, et cetera, et cetera. And we can posit, right, like what the cause is. Like we can say it's because of it's because of my I'm a puppet and my puppeteer is like pulling my strings. Maybe my mind sort of forget. It's interesting. Like I said, I think it's an interesting question, and I think that it could be because I just am very hungry all the time and I like to eat. And so I'm like subconsciously like thinking about how I always want food. It's like, nom, nom. I don't know. Like I said, the point is that like, I say I don't know because I like being honest, and B, I like to know because I feel like there's multiple possibilities for why something can occur. And that's, once again, just getting back to what we were talking about yesterday, it's sort of like that's the idea of science, right? It's sort of like we see the phenomenon, we don't know why it occurs. I mean, we can posit supernatural causes, we can posit metaphysical causes, we can posit a lot of causal structure, but the idea of getting to that is, part of what science tries to do, right? To sort of like understand at a materialistic level, and then maybe understand at a descriptive level, metaphysically, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, it's interesting. It is interesting. I know that I'm pretty sure that I'm aware that there's a meme, right? About like the open God. Like I feel like it's very. I think it's emasculating, right? Like it's sort of like if you have your mouth open. I guess if you talk a lot, which I actually don't do. I mean, I think I think I'm trending toward talking more, which is interesting. But I think if you talk a lot, you're sort of you're more likely to have your mouth open because you're talking a lot. But if you don't talk a lot, but you're also sort of maybe not paying attention to your body, like like I do this, right? Am I paying attention to my body or at a subconscious level? That's a question. There's probably someone with an answer, and the question is, how do they know? I think that's like a philosophy thing. Um, but yeah, but so that's sort of the idea, right? Like it's sort of like there's a phenomenon that's observed. You say, well, what are the sort of characteristics of that observation? You make predictions, and that's like science, right? Um, and so yeah, so like I said, just a plug for science there. I'm just kidding, but the point is that like and it's sort of like sometimes I feel bad because I just like sort of I want to know and understand things at a level that's feels like true and not destructive to the thing itself, right? Like it's sort of like you study something but you don't want to sort of destroy the thing you're trying to study, right? And why study it in the first place, right? If you just like study flowers are pretty, but like do I really want to know about them? I don't know. It's interesting. The point is that how was my day? Well, my day was fine. Not much, right? Like I had to talk again to the new client. I was trying to do some research in the morning, and then so I did the research and I ended up having to talk. So I think I talked like 29 minutes. So it was pretty good. It was pretty cool. It was like, I was kind of pleased, right? 29 minutes, I think 29 minutes, 17 seconds, something like that. Right. And I had it, in the chart and stuff. So it was very good. And so I did that. And then, otherwise, yeah, that was about it. That was my day, right? Research and, 29 minutes. So it was good. Other than that, let me see. I feel like I have a lot of energy, right? It's sort of interesting. But let me see. What else can I talk about? So, oh yeah, the story, right? No, it's funny because one thing I like to do, one thing about the open mouth syndrome, right? Was that a syndrome? I feel like it's like maybe I'm autistic. I don't know. The point is that like there's sort of this. So you look at what was my funny story? So one time I was chewing gum. I like to chew gum. That's a fact about myself. Factoid about myself. I chew gum. Anyway, so I was chewing gum and I had to go on a meeting, right? And it was like I wasn't aware. I had you sort of chew gum, but you forget you're chewing it, right? Like it's funny because they talk about like some people like who can't chew gum and walk at the same time. I will forget I'm chewing gum. Sometimes I forget I'm like doing stuff. It's like I don't know if it's like a low bodily awareness or a hyper awareness that just drifts in other places. I don't know how that works. The point is that like, I forgot I was chewing gum. And like, I know, I could tell like, because I would be like, I had my camera on, and I had the weird suspicion that like everybody was staring at me, but I couldn't see them staring at me, right? I couldn't see them watching me. And so, and then finally my buddy, one of my buddies was like, oh, you actually you're chewing gum. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm chewing gum, right? And so that was a story. The story was chewing. What was the point of the story? I don't know. Sometimes I wonder. But what I'm trying to say is that it is interesting. I mean, this is the stuff. See, this is what happens with me, right? I'll be sort of like, I'll say to myself, yeah, because there's on the one hand, you ought to not have your mouth open, right? And I guess like it's sort of, I guess I'm trying to figure out like what exactly that means. I mean, I guess there's some meaning to it probably that I'm overlooking, but it's sort of like, but this is what'll happen is like, I'm sort of like, well, what's actually wrong with having your mouth open? I mean, people maybe don't like it. It's sort of like rude, blah, blah, blah. But like, is there actually something wrong other than you not liking it? Right. And it's sort of like, and I feel like that's what, that's an ethical thing, right? Like that's sort of the ethical, question. Anyway, I have spoken a lot, so I don't know how much longer I'll say, other than to say that, thumbnails, right? Thumbnails. What should I do about thumbnails? Because that's another thing. Like I think part of the issue is that the thumbnails capture the mouth open. So it's sort of like if you're looking to watch my videos, right? You're sort of like, I wonder what 511 thoughts there are in the world. I haven't YouTube searched it. I don't know what comes up. But if you're looking for that, it's sort of like you see you see 511 thoughts with mouth open versus 511 thoughts with no mouth open, and you wonder, which one you'll click on. I suppose you'll click on the one with closed mouth rather than open mouth. Like I said, I'm not, open mouth is it's interesting. I don't know. I don't know how I feel. I suppose that's the thing about me too, though, is that like I tend to not care. I mean, caring is another thing I want to talk. That's one of the things I want to talk about. Like, I tend not to care about, little things like that, but people tend to care about little things like that, right? It's sort of like, this is what defines sort of our need to sort of control the environment, right? I don't know. I feel like maybe I'm making too much of a big deal. And that's the point, right? That's the point. But yeah, so hope everyone's having a good Wednesday. We are now, through Psi Day. Today is Open Eyes Day. Open Eyes Day with open mouth toward a Friday that hopefully is pretty good. made it to 5:21.